Dear participants, colleagues and organizers, my name is Nicole Franz and I lead the Equitable Livelihoods team in the Fisheries and Aquaculture Division of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. First of all, I want to thank the Sri Lanka Forum for Small-Scale Fisheries for inviting me and for organizing a conference under the theme Fishing for Life in partnership with Sri Lanka Association for Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Ocean University of Sri Lanka. The COVID-19 pandemic situation makes this a challenging time, and the current situation in Sri Lanka is making it even more challenging. Therefore, thank you again for bringing us together despite all of this as a contribution to the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture 2022. I will speak to you a bit about the implementation of the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication, or SSF guidelines in short. For those who haven't seen them yet, these are the guidelines I'm talking about. The final text of these small-scale fisheries guidelines is really the result of a very participatory process in which small-scale fishers, together with governments, non-governmental organizations, regional organizations, and other partners, all provided their views, and then their recommendations have been summarized into a concise set of principles, namely these small-scale fisheries guidelines. And the final text of these guidelines was then endorsed by the FAO Committee on Fisheries in 2014, confirming a strong commitment from both government and civil society to bring about positive change in small-scale fisheries. These small-scale fisheries guidelines address sustainable management, governance of tenure, social development, employment, and decent work, value chains, post-harvest and trade, but also gender equality and climate change and disaster risks. They call for policy coherence, institutional coordination and collaboration. They emphasize the importance of information research and communication. And they also value capacity development. Most importantly, these small-scale fisheries guidelines are grounded in a human rights-based approach. Since their endorsement in 2014, many have embraced the challenge to move from words to action. And this can take very different forms. At the global level, for example, small-scale fisheries is increasingly considered in policy processes and global commitments. There is a Sustainable Development Target 14.b, for example, that calls to provide access for small-scale artisanal fishers to marine resources and markets. At the regional level, many regional fisheries organizations have firmly embedded the small-scale fisheries guidelines in their strategies. And in some cases, they have even dedicated working groups on small-scale fisheries. For example, in Central America through OSPESCA, in Africa in the context of the CECAF, and in the Mediterranean through the GFCM. The GFCM is a General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean. And the GFCM has even championed the adoption of the first regional plan of action for small-scale fisheries. This is a major success, and it is hopefully a model for other regions to follow. Just to give you an example, one activity under this plan is a so-called small-scale fisheries forum. This is a dedicated space, virtual or in person, to share information with small-scale fisheries actors, connect them and give them voice. In fact, a balanced and equitable partnership approach and cross-sectoral collaboration is fundamental for the implementation of the small-scale fisheries guidelines. And there are clearly different roles for different partners, and the implementation of the small-scale fisheries guidelines needs to follow a dual strategy of top-down and bottom-up. Governments have a key responsibility to make implementation happen at the national and local level, and to incorporate the small-scale fisheries guidelines principles in relevant policies and strategies, not only for fisheries, but for overall socio-economic development. Political engagement at a high level, together with investments in capacity and participatory decision-making processes, are required in order to realize the new vision for small-scale fisheries. Fishers and fish workers, on the other hand, through their organizations, are the main drivers of change and play a major role in the bottom-up processes. The small-scale fisheries guidelines need to empower collective action to ensure that small-scale fisheries are mainstreamed into relevant policies, strategies, and actions at the local, at the national, and at the regional level, and importantly, to ensure the implementation of these policies, strategies, and actions. Other players, in particular academia and research, but also regional organizations, NGOs, and others, should be at that interface of this dual strategy, with a function to connect, to supplement, and to document, and to strengthen all of these above-mentioned efforts. And in a way, this is what we see happening now in some countries in Africa, which have embraced the small-scale fisheries guidelines. And in fact, at the national and at the local level is where we need action most. Tanzania and Namibia both approved national plans of action to implement the small-scale fisheries guidelines. And the result of the participatory development process of these plans is, for example, that there's now a Tanzanian Women Fish Worker Association that did not exist before. We're also very happy to see that Madagascar and Malawi are in the process of developing similar national plans of action for small-scale fisheries. And again, we hope that countries in other regions will follow these examples. There are many, many more activities in relation to the implementation of the small-scale fisheries guidelines, and invite all of you to sign up to our newsletter for more information or to visit our website, as the time here does not allow to do justice to all of these great initiatives that are often led by our partners. For now, I wish you a successful conference that brings to light the important contribution made by small-scale fisheries to nutrition, to employment, to poverty alleviation and well-being of the people in the region, and to also chart constructive ways to address the most challenging issues the sector is facing. Thank you very much.